Hi everyone, it's Elaine here, petite plump pensioner. I hope you're all fan-dabby-dozy. I love that word. I just released my inner Jimmy Cranky. Sorry. Uh, yeah, nice to have you here again. If you're new here, welcome. If you've come back, welcome back. Um, so last week I did a video about our downsizing. For those of you who don't know, John and I are both retired, and we downsized from a 3-bed house, detached garage, room for a pony and all that, and we moved into a 1-bed flat. And it seems to be something that a lot of people are very, very interested in. I had a lot of great comments and a lot of great views. So this week I'm going to follow it up with, how do you get rid of all your sentimental items? How do you declutter? How do you get rid of some of the things that you think are family treasures or whatever? Or, how do you deal with it? So I'm gonna start with a little bit of some of the things that some of the research I did, and I've got a note of some of the things that I read and some of the sentences and paragraphs that helped me. They sort of resonated with me when I was going through this decluttering journey. And then in the second half, I'm going to show you some of the things I actually kept, and to keep things to a minimal, and some of the memories that I kept, just to show you how much you can sort of take it down to. So as I say, part of the downsizing decluttering went back a lot into our both our parents. One downsized, one didn't, and the different how the end of the life, the journey, how it was better for the one that downsized and one that didn't. So that sort of started us off always wanting to do it. But on the other hand, when we downsized, John's mum very minimalistic, didn't have a lot of things, wasn't one for sentiment and emotion, whereas my mum kept a lot. She kept a lot. To be honest, I'm glad she's kept a lot, because a lot of the memories and things I've got now are from her, and I'm grateful that she did. She did keep a lot of stuff that was useless. Like I've mentioned before, she had ice cream spoons and things like that, but she seems to have all the family memories from her side of the family, and some from my father's side. So I'm glad she did keep them. So there is a place for them, but you have to decide which are important and which are not. So then, having my brother passed away, he'd obviously inherited some of the things that were my mother's and my father's. I didn't even really had seen about or knew existed. And when my brother passed away, they came to me. And so I have had, it all to sort of process, to get through, to decide what I keep and what I didn't. So I'll just go through how I approached it. And I'll just, some of the things that I read that they did make a difference. So if you do truly love an item, which, if you love a physical object, then keep it, but use it, display it, so that you're able to enjoy the memories that it evokes. Because a lot of times, my mum probably kept things, people keep things, and they're just shoved away. So if you really think it's worth keeping, then do something with it. And as I say, I'll show you what I've done with some of mine in a bit. And if you, like, say, choosing to let go of things, I know to a lot of people, and it's not unique. It's part of the human psyche to want to keep things, really, because I think it makes you think that people think they need these things to sort of have a physical presence, to know that they belong somewhere or they belong to something, and it's quite important. But sometimes there are times when you do have to let go of it. So even if you let that item go, and I can think of some things that I have let go, but you have to think, you'll always remember that person and that moment, even if you remove it. If it meant something special to you at some point, it has a memory in here, it has a feeling in here. And if you let it go, that you're not getting rid of that. So, be brave, be bold. If you think you've got a sentimental item, ask yourself, well, what response does it bring? What does it remind me of? When you go physically holding your items to get rid of, how does it make me feel? what would happen if I didn't have it? If I didn't have that item, would my roof fall in, or would my life fall apart, or would I be psychologically scarred for a long time? You know, really, really, you want to go deep in yourself to try and sort out some of these things, see what you do about it. Now, if you have a collection of items, like say a family, like, I don't know, a family dinner service, or if you've got a collection of china from, you know, like china ornaments or figurines that have been passed down from maybe grandparents or whatever, you know, if you keep them and they're probably shoved in a cupboard somewhere or whatever, well, then look at that collection and then find the one that you like the best, the one that gives you the most memory. Keep that one, put it on display, and let the others go. Let somebody enjoy them. Let that become an heirloom or a treasure for another household. But just keep one that really means something to you, and keep it out on display so that you can actually enjoy it and you're not overwhelmed by all of the clutter that the full body of things begins. I've got a couple of items that I've kept. There's one that I'll put a photo of on later. John's aunt didn't have any children, but we'd got very close to her, you know, as in our from our after our married life. She'd worked, she was a nurse like me, she worked in London and she didn't have a lot of contact with the family. So when she retired, we then started, she sort of reached out to the family and we started to have quite a connection with her and we used to go and visit her, etc. And in her house, she had a, a black cat figurine that used to sit on her fireplace. Now, I'm not a cat person. I probably could be if I was allowed to have one, and we can't have one here. But she used to have this little black cat figurine that was always curled up on the fireplace, pretty little bow around its neck, beautiful face. Absolutely loved it. Now, when she passed away, John's sister cleared out her possessions. She was in a nursing home then anyway, so she had very few, but this was one of the ones that survived. So John's sister took some other figures that she liked. She did have that cat, but I mentioned she just had it on the top of a cupboard somewhere, not really on display like the other figures that she had more connection to. But I said, oh, you know, we really liked it. So I've got that. So that sits on my, we don't have a fireplace, but it sits on my television unit. So that's one item that does have a lot of memories and it reminds us of John's aunt, a beautiful lady. And so we do have one thing and it's out on display and I look at it every day and that gives a good memory. So then going through all your own things, like, because you forget generations have changed, haven't they? I mean, one thing that's helped me with some of the possessions is, or the possessions have helped me with, is I've started doing my family tree. And I started researching my family tree and I've managed to get quite a long way. And I was talking about it to my niece. Now, my great niece at the time said, well, what are you doing that for? Why are you interested in dead people? And of course, that's a younger person's view on it. And you think, oh, when you're a bit older, you'll be interested in these. Because dead people, I said, so when I've gone, is that it? I've gone. You're never going to think of me again. And she just laughed. But so you go through these possessions that we've had, and they might mean something to you, or they might mean something to, you know, like my brother. But then when you go to the younger ones, if you're going through it, and then you look at your items and you think, oh, I wonder if, like, say Sarah would like that, or I wonder if Andrew would like that. But then so that's the person that you think it's most suited to. So say, I don't know, we've got some railway ancestors, some sort of railway workers. So say it was something to do train memorabilia, and if I said to my nephew, "Would you be interested in that?" You know, it's really interesting. If they went, "No," then let it go, because you're keeping them because you think you're keeping memories for others, but they're not interested. They're really not interested. So think of that person, ask them, and let it go. But if they do want something, if they say, do you know, I really would like to keep that memory, well, then give it them and make a memory with it. Go and meet them, have a coffee with them, do whatever to hand it over to them. And then you created a memory. That's another memory. And it's one small piece, but creates a memory, a feeling. They might remember, I remember that day when I went, you know, to meet my auntie, or I went to meet my uncle. And use it that way. And it's memories, it's in here, it's in here. And the other thing is people, I mean, I must admit, I've never travelled. I've travelled light through life. I've always had a lot of things. My mum had a lot of things, so I think I had that a lot of things. And then sometimes you think, I can't let it go. I can't let it go. I can't let it go. And then sometimes in something you let it go, and then afterwards you think you want it, you need it. So you think, oh, I had that. I got rid of it, and it's usually you think it's a few weeks after you've got rid of it. But then don't fear letting it go, because then at the end you just think, oh, I've let it go and I haven't got it, and it's not really going to change your life. So don't fear that feeling of regret. People think I would regret letting go. I would be down in the memory of my mother and my ancestors if I let it go. You won't, because you'll still be thinking about them. Just let it go and don't let it regret it. And to be honest, I found that it is a breath of fresh air. I know a lot of people who have decluttered and minimalised, and it does feel like it is. I say it again and again and again. I'll use the word liberating. It's very, very liberating to have fewer things. And the fewer things that you've got, you keep the nice, special things that you really appreciate. Not that's in a box somewhere that you kick your toe on when you go, into a cupboard or into if you've got a pantry or you've got a spare bedroom or something. You'll just have a few things that really mean something to you. And I think a lot of people have possessions because particularly these days, I mean, it wasn't so much with like my parents who would now be alive, would be 100. But you look at, they never really had a lot, did they? Nobody really had a lot. Everybody was the same. Everybody was on sort of like more or less a level playing field. But these days, there's a lot of significance put on possessions. That it's a measurement of your status, of your wealth, of your social standing. If you had that big house, we had that big house, and people are like, oh, you only live in a flat. And I must admit, I found myself doing it sometimes. Oh, well, we did have a big house, but we sold it to downsize. And I know I do it. Hey, I'm not perfect in all this when I'm saying about how to downsize, how to emotionally let it go. I still have this thing that house had a sign of a bit more status than this small flat. But you gradually let it go, let it go, let it go. But these days it is, if you've got the designer handbag, you've got to have the label with the handbag. And if you've got to have the big car, the BMW, whatever, we have a humble Corsa. It works, it runs, it gets us, it's good. You can only go so fast, can't you, when you're on the roads and on the motorway. But I think these times there is a lot of value on possessions. But I think a lot of you my age who are watching, you learn really that it doesn't. And I always take it back to lockdown, that what did those possessions and those statuses do for you when the world was very, very simple and there was nothing you could do? It was all about your people, and it was what was in here. You couldn't go and take your designer handbag out, could you? You couldn't go parading around with it. So it is a case of, you learn to think they're not that important, but there is a lot of pressure put on having the possessions. But I think you find it's not pressure not having them. You know what I mean? It's great. Don't have to worry about them. I still like my handbags. I can't help it. I've got more handbags than I know what to do with. I've got too many. I'll just go and buy. But the thing is, if I have got some designer ones. I did have some that I bought. But you know what? I don't use them because I think, I've worn that before. And I keep going and buying like different cheaper ones that suit what I'm wearing at the time. So you don't need them. You don't need them. Even if you've got them, you find that you don't always use them all the time. Well, I didn't. So then this was something that I thought was really good. And it was, consider the story, not the object. So you might look at something, say it's a vase, and I had a glass, a big glass, like wine glass vase, very retro from the 70s, that belonged to my mum, and it was in my childhood home. And you have to think about it. Consider the story, not the object. So ask yourself, if the item really holds value for you, or is it that the item that holds value, or is it the story behind it that's more important? So if it's the story that's more important, just take a picture of it and let the physical item go. And I think there are a lot of people out there who say that, you know, either can like digitize things, take photographs and keep like a scrapbook or a memory book of items that you kept. Anyway, I kept this vase for a long, long time. Um, and then when we downsized, I kept thinking, I don't really know where I'm going to put it. And I let it go. I reluctantly thought, I really agonised over just letting this vase go. One thing that I thought, it was one of the last sort of um, decorative pieces that my mum had. I could see it. I could see it in my childhood living room. You know what I mean? And but I let it go, and it was fine. It was fine. I survived it, and I don't miss it. I let it go, but it's still in there. I can still picture it, and I can still picture it in my mother's living room. So yeah, think about it. Let it go. So that's some of the ideas that you see. Now I'll link in the description below. There are some great YouTubers, as we know, out there, but there are a couple of people who I found really useful in helping you to get rid. There's a lady called the Minimal Mom, and she's very good, and she's got a whole playlist of videos. I think she's either American or Canadian. I think she might be Canadian as well. Um, and she's got a whole playlist of letting things go. And I found her so useful, so useful. Um, and she was one. And then there's another girl who's definitely Canadian called uh, Cassie. I think she's called Clutterbug. And she's actually made a career out of helping people declutter, but she's very good about talking about it, about letting things go, or you know, keeping a minimal house. And they're both not only very entertaining, but they've got some good points, and I found that they really, really helped me. I mean, as we know, the body of knowledge on YouTube, I mean, a lot of things I've done have been, even everything about the decluttering, I've looked at things and researched articles and a lot of blogs and a lot of YouTube. You know, sometimes people call social media, but there's a lot of out there that's very, very helpful. I think without some of that information, I wouldn't have known where to start it. So I'm coming to you now with how I did my journey, and how to cope with less possessions, because my biggest possession is my husband at the moment and my family, my sister-in-law, my nieces, my family. They're my biggest possessions. Um, and this feeling secure and safe in this flat is very, very important. So let me show you what I did. I've had to make a little list of some of the things that I did. So I saw somebody, in fact, I was only sort of just doing a little bit more, refreshing my brain this morning. And somebody was saying about keeping a memory box for each. If you've got children, say each child has a memory box. Um, and so I don't have children like that, but they were saying about like box frames, and this is something I did. Um, I don't know where I got this inspiration from, but it must have been somebody. So as I say, I was a nurse for nearly 38 years. I trained as a midwife. I trained as a nurse, then I went on to be a midwife, and then I would then ended up with neonatal care with the sick newborns and that. But when I first qualified as a sister, my mum bought me a silver buckle, because in those days you could still wear the silver buckles, and we still had caps and cuffs. And so I'd kept that, and I kept the belt, and I don't think the belt would even go around a thigh now, let alone my waist. I had like this little tiny waist. Um, but I kept it, and then this is what I did. I've got the light on, trying not to. I made a memory box. I put a little video in later on in the thing, and so I used one of these. Oh, they're great, these lights, aren't they? But they don't have right. So there. So I got one of these box frames. I think it was from Hobbycraft. It wasn't very expensive, and I got blue backing paper, because blue was the colour of the uniform that we used most of the time. And I pinned on this piece of foam underneath. So I pinned on my buckle, and then I pinned on my nursing and my midwifery badges. And so they're on a shelf in our hall, and they're a reminder, you know, that those are like my medals. And so I keep them, and they're a display, and they're not shoved in a drawer, you know. And I've seen people like my nephew who said, "Oh, are those medals?" So I just said, "Oh no, it was my nursing badges," and he was like, "Oh, it was that's interesting." So that was one frame. Now the other thing I've got about a box frame, I haven't yet worked this out yet. I haven't yet found the right frame because Hobbycraft's not near me, and I need to go and find one. Been to the range, etc., but their boxes aren't as thick as that. But I want that size again because when I inherited from my brother, and then when I've been doing my family tree, which I knew very little about my grandparents. I only ever met one grandparent. I met my grandmother, Amelia. I used to spend some time with her, and I had her till I was 18. But my other grandparents, I remember her husband. I remember seeing him once. My other grandparents, Adeline and George, I never ever met. So I don't really know much about all of the backstories, really. Um, but I then discovered after Alan, my brother, passed away, this railway drivers, engine drivers, British Railways, is that my grandfather and my great grandfather and some of my great uncles on my paternal side were engine drivers. They worked on the railways. They worked on the old like steam as well, steel railways. And my brother had this, and it was it's leather, and it's still sort of real, got all the that, you know, like what do they call it in antique days, patina of all the sweat and the oil and that. I thought that was quite something. This is a side note, whether you do it or not, Billy. I didn't know about my grandparents, and then what I've always had a bit of an interest in the afterlife. And once I went to a spiritualist church, and I'm talking, but it's nearly 40 years ago, very, very 35, 40 years ago. And the medium said to me, can I come to you? And she said, I've got a man here who's, he watches over you. He's your guardian angel, this man. So I couldn't think anything of it and that. And then he went, she said, I can see the railways. I think he's an engine driver. And I was like, I couldn't recognise it. So she said, well, I'll just leave it with you, but he's here and he looks after you. And I was like, whatever. But guess what? My granddad was an engine driver. Anyway, so talking about in a box frame, I've now found a photograph of my granddad with my brother. And that's my granddad, Charles, who owns this. So I want to try and put this into a memory box and a frame because I think it's lovely. I was fascinated then about, wow, my granddad looks over me. But when I think about it, I was only 3 or 4 when my grandfather passed away. So thinking about it, all my cousins, they're all about 11, 12 years older than me. I came on as a little late surprise. And they were all boys mostly. And I think this little girl I think he was poorly for a bit. And I think this little girl must have just toddled into his life. And maybe that's why he was my guardian angel. So that was taken in 1950, it's written on the back. So that is going to go into a box frame. And I think, funny enough, my nephew's children, the 2 boys, very much into railways and transport and things like that. So hopefully it's something one of them might be interested in later on. So it's a bit, like I say, it's just shoved in a drawer again, but I want to make it have a meaning and put it in one of these. So that's something you can do. I have a little box that belonged to my parents, that was my dad, very small wood. It's a bit poor taste these days. These elephants are made in ivory, but it was of its time. My in the 50s, my mum, my dad and my brother for a bit lived in Qatar and Iraq, and so sort of travelled around a bit over in the Middle East. My dad worked for the petrochemical industry. Even when my mum and brother came back, he stayed there for a while. So that was just something treasured that they kept for a long time. So I do keep that. It's very small. It's very useful. I keep little trinkets in. One of which is, or has been, that's a photograph of my mum when she was younger. She was very attractive, red-haired. But I don't know if you can tell, but she's got a little pair of earrings on, costume earrings. She still had those earrings in her possessions. So I keep them because it means something. It goes with that photograph. So I keep those little earrings in my box just because I can relate to when she was wearing them. at the age she was wearing them. So that's another thing that I keep. I have in here, again, something I've not done anything with yet, but I've got various medals. I've got various medals and military cap badges that belong to my dad from World War II, and lots of that, and then like there's another military bag. I keep those in a bag. Now, this is not something, I should do something better with them, but as I'm doing my family tree, I'm trying to work out who they belong to. Some of them are from like North Staffordshire Regiment, and my paternal side are from North Staffordshire, but I don't actually know which member of the family they belong to. That's a work in progress in my family tree, but I keep them. And I would keep my father's medals because I didn't know my brother had them until he passed away and I got them, because I'm proud of him. I'm proud of my father, of what he did. He was overseas, he was in the liberation of Belgium, so I'm very proud of my father. Thank you for what you did. And so I keep those. I need to do something more with them, like you say, enjoy them a little bit more. I'm telling you, enjoy them, display them. Well, no, I haven't got them, but I will do something about it. I also have, talking about memory boxes, I have one box here, which is full of sentimental paperwork. It's one box, and that's all it is. There are old passports in there, because of course I said my parents travel backwards and forwards. There's old passports. There's my dad's identity card for when he worked in Iraq, Qatar it was, and Iraq. And so there's little things like that, which I think they're things my family have kept for a long time. And I lost my dad. My dad passed away when I was only 15, so I didn't have a lot of time with him. At the time when you really are interested in them and want to know what they've got to tell you, he'd gone. So they're things I do keep. Talking about being sentimental, I do keep them, but I keep a small amount in a small box that then go into a bigger box, which I will come back to in a minute, what I've done with that. I'm always coming back to you, aren't I? Sorry. And that's it. And so I have my childhood teddy bear. That's up on a shelf, and I'll put a little clip in of that. My childhood teddy bear, I can't. That's something I'm not going to let go, because it's your teddy bear is special, isn't it? That my husband knows when. Sadly, I'm not going to go anywhere lately. But if I do, I don't want to be going any for a long time. But if I do, he knows in my coffin, my teddy bear's going. It's going with me. It came in with me when I was really early-ish, and it's going out with me. So I keep my teddy bear. I have a money box, a little rabbit money box, which I don't know when I acquired it, but I must have been young, 7, 8 maybe, and it used to be on my bedside table. And I know when my dad came back to England and was living here, he used to go travelling, and he always used to say, "If you got any money, make sure you got money." And he always used to put money in that box. Well, he'd just go in his pocket, empty out his loose change, and put it in there. So that is sentimental. It's very pretty, very cute little rabbit. Looks a bit like I'm looking at it now because it's over there. It looks a bit like Thumper out of Bambi. Although Bambi's not a film I've ever watched. No, too emotional for me. But that looks pretty, so I keep that. It sits on a shelf, and I keep that. It's a small item, but it's on display, and I look at it every morning when I wake up. And that's just one piece that makes important to me. As for John, he's not over sentimental to a lot of things. He tends to, when his uncle, who he was very, very close to, passed away, he was left a little bit of money, so he bought himself a watch and had his uncle, in memory of the family and his uncle, he had it engraved on the back. So that's him. He keeps that watch, and on the back is the engravement in memory. So he has that. And then when this particular aunt, we got the thing, he found in her possessions, we were given a little jewellery box, and in it was a sovereign. So he sort of cashed in the sovereign, the gold of it, and he bought himself a ring. So he wears that ring, and that reminds him of her. So he does that. And the only other one thing he's got in his bedside drawer is a piece of coal. The things you get, piece of coal. But again, his uncle, 2 of his uncles were miners, and he was close to them. And one of them brought him a piece of coal and said, "Here, I've got you this from the mine." And he keeps that. He keeps that because it's just very close to this uncle. So he just keeps that in his drawer. It doesn't make, it's not on display or anything, but he keeps it. And it's like, it's not taking up any space. It's not costing us money. And that's all he keeps. So you just need, so he's got like one item for different family members. So that's all we do. And that's it. Now, the other thing I've done, which I was talking about when I say about a box, my mum and dad, as far as I can remember, in my mum's house, there was a carved cedarwood box, like an oriental carved cedarwood box. Has the most beautiful scent. Now, it was brought from the Middle East when my parents were moving about, and I know it's older than me. I'm 65 and that box is older than me. And it used to sit at the foot of my mother's stairs and we never really used it. But I used to open it and smell it. My mum just kept fabric in there. And then it gathered dust and dust and dust. And then when my mum moved out, it went to my brother. My brother had that, and I had a little small carved table. Anyway, before my brother passed away, it transpired he would rather have had the table and I would rather have had the box. So we swapped. So I've got the box. Anyway, I had it in my spare bedroom. And it was just in the spare bedroom, and I kept stationery in it and things like that. But it didn't fit in with the modern, the look of all the furniture with contemporary stuff that I had, really. It was a bit of an eyesore, but I was really emotionally attached to it and I couldn't let it go. So then what I did before I was moving here, I sanded it down, I repurposed it. I got a sander, I sanded it down, and I cleaned it, got rid of the layers of dust. I just got a little wire brush, and you just use washing up liquid and little cotton wool buds. I looked it all up on YouTube and did it. And then I got the French chic paint, which is quite a thing, and there's lots of videos about that. And I repainted it. It had a very ornamental little lock on it, but it had gone oxidized and it didn't look very pretty. Took that up, cleaned it up, soaked it in Coke. I showed you what it does to your insides. Soaked it in Coke, cleaned all that up. Anyway, I painted it a really nice cream colour. And where some of the carvings were, I just decided to bring out my creative side. And I got a little brush with some gold French chic sort of highlighting paint. And I just picked out part of the pattern and I did it. And I repainted the lock and I put it back on. I've got to tell you, I think it looks amazing. It's now in my living room. I keep it there. I've repurposed it. In it, I actually keep my memory box. I keep a lot of the folders and files that I'm doing for my family tree. It's in there. Keep a nice little candle on or anything. And when people come in, one of the first things they say is, isn't that box fabulous? And that's it. So think about it. Repurpose it. Make it look something that you're going to want to use and love. I love that box now. And I might actually think that later on, one of my younger family might think, I like that box. I'll keep that box. They wouldn't have wanted it. They'd have put it on the fire if they'd have seen it, how the condition. You'll see in the little bit of the clip that I put on, they would have just put it on the fire and when they wouldn't know the story behind it. But I think now seeing it like that, somebody hopefully will love it and want to keep it on. And I'm very proud of what I did with that. Very, very proud that I repurposed it and gave it back a lot of love and care. And now I can really enjoy it and look at it again. And I love it. And I still now, as I've gone to get this box out, as I've opened up the box, the smell of the cedar wood, it's beautiful. And that evokes a lot of memories. So that's just one piece. So that's mostly it. And then just the very last thing, I'll just touch on jewellery. What do you do with jewellery? Now, I've always wore white gold, always wore white gold. It's very fashionable now, but even when I got married, people were still wearing yellow gold, and we looked high and low to get white gold engagement ring and wedding ring. But my mum always had, yellow gold, and she had some rose gold as well. So, for reasons that my mum, I think she had a bit of a troubled, I know she does, family tree, pieced it all together. But my mum didn't talk a lot. Well, she did talk a lot about family, but she didn't always talk about the pieces she had and where they were. But my mum had some lovely pieces of jewellery. My dad used to bring her some things. So my mum had really nice jewellery. And so I inherited it. But it was things like, it wasn't anything I was ever going to wear. It just was not my thing. So what I did was I had it all refashioned. So my mum had a charm bracelet that I knew, I think it belonged to her mum, who she'd got, well, I think maybe a 21st. And on it was a little ring, which I think was my grandmother's engagement ring. Um, and she had all this lovely stuff. So I had it all refashioned. So I took it to one particular jeweler who had a lot of, faith with, who I always my go-to jeweler, and they sort of smelted it down, and he made the bracelet and things into a slave bangle that had like the head of that little engagement ring on it. And so I could wear it. It was rhodium plated. It was white gold. I had that. I'm saying had because I've come back to that one. And then my earrings here, my little two studs here. In fact, I haven't got the necklace on, but my mum's had a trilogy style engagement ring, so she had 3 stones. So I had that made into a pendant and earring set. So the 3 stones from my mum's engagement ring are in diamond studs and a little very small diamond pendant. Should have put it on really. I didn't. Very tiny, tiny, just diamond single stoned. So I kept them, repurpose them. I wear them all the time. I wear these every day, these little diamond earrings. So they're sort of a connection to my mum and dad. So I had that. She had another ring that she had. She always had a big amber stone ring. It was beautiful. And only when she passed away, it was too big for me. The stone didn't look right. It was only when she passed away at the funeral, her brother said to me, "Oh, I remember when he was away at war when my mum got married. He said, I haven't got her a wedding present." Anyway, she dragged me in this jeweller's and I had to buy her this ring, this big ring with a stone. So I knew that was the provenance of that ring. It came from my Uncle George, who I thought the world of, bought it her. So I've had that mounted into a pendant. So I wear that. I've got that nice sort of white gold pendant. So I've worn it and I use it. She had a bracelet that had a turquoise stone in it. It was a bit Art Deco, but it didn't really sit right and it flapped everywhere. And that I've had that made into a pendant. So so I refashioned it. Now going back to the bangle, I just didn't, and I've had a new engagement ring. That was it when John's aunt passed away. I did all the affairs. I was like power of attorney. So she did leave us just a little bit of money. So my husband said, "What do you want?" I went and want a new diamond ring. So I'm a bit of a magpie. So I had a new engagement ring. So I had the older engagement ring. So long story short, we just celebrated our ruby wedding anniversary. And I said I fancied a ring with a little bit of a ruby in. And he said, "Well, I wouldn't mind a pinky ring with a ruby in." So we thought about it and how much it would be. So then I decided to trade in again the bangle that I had, the old engagement ring, a couple of other bits, and got the money to get 2 new rings. And though, because I said to my niece, they would mean nothing to her. She said, "No, I have no attachment, no sentimental value." So we used it, and we've got, I've only got a very small ring with some like little baguette rubies in. So I've used that again, modern jewellery, because I think my nieces might like the little diamonds, they might, whatever, but they weren't going to have the other things. So enjoy it. So this is what I'm saying. So don't keep it in a drawer. Enjoy it. I now enjoy my mum's jewellery, and because of the other stuff that I'm sure she would have said, yeah, move it on, have something new, love. So John's got a little pinky ring and I've got a little ruby ring. So just maybe think outside of the box with your possessions and your memories. Make them into new memories, and enjoy them, because you should enjoy things in life. And I think you should enjoy your possessions. They should. Now, here's another one I was going to put in with this: Marie Kondo. Everybody must have heard of Marie Kondo. And she's the greatest sort of I think she started this whole decluttering and how you keep things, and it's how you fold things, everything, how to make your life beautiful. And she always says everything should spark joy. If you don't know what to do with it, if it doesn't spark joy in your life, get rid of it. So now I've made my mum's jewellery spark joy in my life. My mum's box that was looking knackered, for want of a better word, is now lovely, refreshed, and it sparks joy. So I think I'm going to leave it there. I'll show you a few clips at the end of some of the things I've got. But yeah, make sure your possessions spark joy. They don't fill you with dread, thinking, "Oh, I've got all this clutter and I don't know what to do with it." And be bold. Be bold and do it. Because I'll tell you, it does make you feel better. So I don't know whether this helped you or not, and I've probably rambled on. And as I'm talking to you, my mind's thinking, oh yeah, think about that, say that, say that. So anyway, that's me for today. That's my sermon for today about how to get rid of sentimental items. I hope it helps you. Let me know in the comments. You know what have you done? What have you done with your things? What things are you dreading getting rid of? Or, you know, what do you want to keep? And think, oh, maybe now I'll do this with it, or I'll do that with it. I just hope if I can help one person, then I've helped somebody. Anyway, if you want to like, please do the video, comment. And if you'd like to subscribe to my channel to help me grow and bring you back again, I think my next range in this, I will talk about storage solutions for small spaces, how we've got around some things in the flat for the possessions that we do keep. So anyway, I hope you all have a great week. Thank you for stopping by, and I'll see you all again soon. Thank you. And this is the box now. I covered it in the friendship paint in a nice cream, and then just with a fine brush picked out a few of the touches and upgraded the lock. And now it's proud of place. It's got a nice display in the living room, and it's a feature. And inside it I keep a lot of my family tree documentation. You know, you accumulate birth and death certificates, etc. So I keep it there.